Hi everyone, I'm Mirela Ciobanu, lead editor with the Paypers, and we are live here at Money Motion 2026, where I'm joined by Srđan Košutić, Chief Transformation Officer for the Payment Acceptance at Raiffeisen Bank International, where we are going to speak about AI, banking modernization, whatnot. Srđan, happy to have you here with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
How are you today? How has been the event so far?
It's been so far a very interesting event. Always a good occasion to reconnect with people every year in different setups or different touch points across the year. But like this is for at least for me for the sort of Southeastern European landscape, the go-to event to reconnect with all the partners and colleagues from local network banks.
Yeah. And since you mentioned reconnecting and talking about this space, I did a bit of research and I noticed that you have a lot of experience in fintech and in cybersecurity and whatnot. So first, please tell us more about your professional journey and how it led you to your current role at Raiffeisen Bank International.
So it's been an interesting journey, at least for me. It's always been a sort of a mix of let's say banking, financial services, and tech, and different contexts. So even before sort of onboarding the banking train, I was involved in the tech side of business, starting up a couple of companies, service companies mostly, and then later a couple of tech product companies. And then my banking experience, on the other hand, was more on the sort of structured finance side, so pure, let's say, investment banking type of a background. And at some point they started to converge. So that was maybe like 10 years ago when I started to bring the two together. And I think now, I'm in a place where I'm pretty comfortable with having both sort of skill sets and also enjoying both sides of my background.
Yeah, because in a way, your role as Chief Transformation Officer has to reunite all these functions like technology operations and business growth. How do you manage to do all this?
I mean, it does, yeah. So it's basically, to a great extent, a combination, as you mentioned, of technology, operations, strategy as well, to a certain extent. And what I enjoy about it the most is now it's really a growth-focused role. So it's not only a technical role or sort of migrating the systems, etc., but really a sort of role that allows me to look at the business, the payment acceptance business from a growth perspective, and understand how we can serve our merchants better, and what we need to build and how do we need to adapt the organization to be able to do so. Yeah, so pretty broad, but also can get very, very technical at times.
Yeah, and mentioning the fact that you are striving to provide the best services, solutions for your customers, and while digging all the time, you find also, let's say, the hard points. So we'll start a bit with the challenging part. From your perspective, what are the biggest pain points currently sitting on a bank's Chief Transformation Officer agenda? Could be legacy infrastructure, regulatory pressure, speed of innovation, talent.
I would say it's a little bit of both. So in terms of like a more broader banking context, I think most of the European banks, at least the incumbents, bring pretty much the same package when it comes to legacy issues. There has been a lot of both domestic and cross-border mergers, and this brings always the integration challenges and data challenges, and system integration problems, etc. But speaking more narrowly, so in the sort of payment acceptance context, I think from one side we are, in a good position. So we still have similar issues, but I think the universe of problems is getting a little bit more narrow, and we are trying to look at it from a more, point of view, how we can turn the business into a platform that can serve the merchants. And yes, we still have these problems, and but I think any player that doesn't have the luxury from starting from scratch has it. So for me, it's not really a problem. It's like more as a starting point, like a level playing field that pretty much most of the bank acquirers face when it comes to payment acceptance.
Yeah, so besides integration, could be other, I don't know, not challenges, yeah, areas that kind of ask for more innovative solutions. I don't know, like regulations or the pressure of the others
I mean,
innovating.
I think also payment acceptance is very, let's say, business dominated also to a certain extent by non-banking players. So like pure play acquirers that are also setting the pace in certain contexts. So, it's very, let's say, fulfilling to be in this type of a situation, because you are driven also by a market that is a very dynamic one, and you cannot rest. You cannot say, hey, we are uh, putting putting the foot from the pedal, and let's take it. So otherwise, you are losing pace. So that's what makes the whole thing very very dynamic. Regulation, yes. In general banking context, of course, we are a bank captive acquirer, so we need to adhere to also to the banking regulation. But like AI, yeah, this was also the topic of the panel that was there yesterday. But AI is also reshaping not only like what do customers or merchants expect from us, but also what their customers expect from them, and then also how we operate, how we do our side of the business. Yeah, so pretty interesting times to be in banking and technology.
And speaking about technology, could also, yeah, getting the right talent, the right human resources on board be a challenge nowadays? What do you think?
I mean, I joined RBI recently, so it was 6 months ago, more or less. And I think talent is, yes, it can be an issue. But I was very surprised, like with the quality of the talent that already exists in the bank, like and the skill that the people have, and how proactive they are, how educated, how knowledgeable about certain topics they are, and I think this is an asset that I'm not personally too convinced about. Sorry, I'm not concerned about it. I'm really convinced that this is an asset that sits within banking, and definitely sits within my area. So.
Was a panel with a bank CEO, and almost to the end, they were asked what role do they see the human, their employees playing in this age of AI, whether it's going to be disrupted, their role, and whether there are going to be massive layoffs based on some of the news that we've heard. And yeah, the bank CEO gave a quite balanced approach, a reply, like you mentioned. In a way, we still have a place here in this technological era, because the human expertise and the human touch when it comes to customer experience is hard to be duplicated by the AI. And yeah, speaking about AI, and now zooming into fraud, because sometimes AI can be seen both as a shield and also as a weapon. How do you comment on this? I don't know, what are the most pressing types of fraud affecting the financial services today, and how are these influenced by the development of AI?
I mean, we also had an interesting discussion yesterday, partially on the panel and partially, let's say, after the panel with other co-panelists. I mean, part of my background is also in fraud prevention.
Yeah, cybersecurity.
And even though it doesn't relate to what I do now as a sort of very narrow, but yet very deep problem that is being solved. AI is definitely posing new challenges when it comes to fraud prevention. First of all, like there are new attack vectors that are being opened. Take dark LLMs. So the same way that you ask Claude or whatever AI to write code, there are also dark LLMs that write malicious code. And this, the scale of that has been, really, really astonishing. Also, the previous issues that the industry was facing, like synthetic identities, and basically, account farming and building these identities to be used and to create money muling accounts, etc. Now it can be done at scale. So, not to mention like prompt injections.
Yeah.
A whole new bunch of co-pilots that the fraudsters are basically now building, also to guide their fraud call center operators to how to social engineer people. So I think the landscape is definitely getting more challenging. Luckily, there are companies out there also tackling this in at the same or similar pace as the fraudsters are, because unlike banks, they don't have compliance departments, they don't have regulations, so there is no let's say nothing slowing the adoption process of AI, in this type of organizations, which means that they can move at a pace that is naturally way faster usually than the industry can. So, which makes the fraud fighter job even more interesting for colleagues working in financial institutions.
Yeah, and speaking about these companies, the banks, I have this feeling that, sometimes they kind of need to ask for help at industry technology providers for different types of solution. And this in a way relates also to, let's say, banking modernization. Usually, how does this type of partnership work from your perspective? Oh, I mean, you can have it as buying the solution, or you can build it in-house, or you can have a partnership. How, from your experience, what approach does it work best for banks like Raiffeisen?
I mean, it's very hard to comment on a broad level, but generally, what I think is happening in the industry is that it is shifting slightly from sort of buy versus build, to more build versus partner, and where anything that is being built in-house sort of tends to shift towards areas that can really bring some strategic differentiation. Whereas for everything where you need to go at speed, and there are specific, like, very niche vendors or specific technologies that are there in the market, there is more on the partnering side. I think on the buy side it's getting a little bit more commoditized. So the things that are technologies or solution vendors that are being like commoditized are more on the buy side, but that's just my personal take.
Yeah, and now only if you are available to reply, can you give some examples of partnerships or solutions that Raiffeisen has developed?
I mean, we have in payment acceptance business. This is a business also very heavily dominated by partnerships. So we have group partners that are helping us with field services, with the distribution of the POS devices, with the new technologies that are these devices are running on. So I would say it's a pretty partner dependent market, and I think it's not a bug, it's a feature. So it's like that's how the business works, at least when it comes to bank captive acquirers. And then when it comes to the ability of banks to build, yes, of course, we do have also things that we have built in-house, and they are, I would say, at par, and even to a certain extent even better than what some local or regional players are able to build themselves. So I think it's a combination of both. Again, depending on the strategy, where do you want to sort of partner, for what activities do you want to delegate to a partner, or utilize the technology that would take too much to build. So I don't know if this was too broad, but I think it's more or less how I see the, let's say, at least for my line of work, how I see the partner versus build.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about technology, but then technology doesn't exist in vacuum. It's connected to the landscape and the trends. And I'm curious, at European level, what other trends are you closely following, like open finance, instant payments, digital identity, AI regulation?
A lot of, like, I think the current state of the market is there are a lot of things happening. For me in particular, it's mostly about agentic AI. It's also about agentic commerce. This is something that where I'm focusing a lot of my time on. Also on the stablecoin topic. So we're trying to stay on top of the developments that are basically reshaping the payments side of the industry, or the payment acceptance side of the business. So I'm focusing mostly on those topics, but of course there are other topics that interest me beyond that. Yeah. So, but very hard to stay on top on top of every new wave of technology that is coming. But I think if I would have to take one, it would be the AI topic. That's the umbrella. Yeah.
Yeah, and this gives me the opportunity to ask, how was the panel yesterday? You are part of a discussion called "Moving Towards the Next Stage in AI." What are some takes that you discovered?
I mean, it was a very interesting panel. Very thankful for the host and for the co-panelists. I think a lot of interesting insights. The mix of co-panelists was also very good. I think a couple of takeaways, at least from my side. Before saying what is the next stage, I think it's good to say where we are currently. I think we are somewhere, past experimentation, but not yet in the sort of full agentic adoption yet. There is still a lot of, let's say, debate whether it's going to be an AI-run bank versus AI-augmented bank. Different approach. What I've also heard on the market, where people are seeing, to what extent are consumers going to adopt AI as well, or at least when it comes to banking and financial services. So it was a very, very interesting and inspiring discussion. But it also helped me understand that now we have, and there are colleagues in Vienna who are following this topic of strategy when it comes to AI. And I would have to say that, also them are really at the top of what is happening in the industry. And I'm learning a lot from them. We work close hand by hand because my topic is a little bit narrower, mostly on the agentic commerce side. And then agentic AI use cases that we can apply for our business. But I think when it comes to general sort of market, where the market stands on this, I think there are banks in Eastern Europe in particular that are sort of fast followers. So, looking at what happens in other markets, and they are able to execute at scale. And the banks that are trying to be at the forefront of the innovation. So, but let's see. Yeah, there are a lot of things happen. Things are happening. Things are evolving on a daily basis. It's very hard to keep track of it, and I think this is also why some banks are even sort of reluctant to start, because they don't know where to start. I'm speaking with former colleagues, people that I know from banking industries, and it's really a different landscape of where people stand when it comes to AI. Yeah.
Yeah. And since you mentioned that things are in a way past experimenting, so most of the banks have already played with it. How do you think they really perceive AI as a productivity tool, as a competitive differentiator, a risk factor, regulatory headache, all of them, maybe other perspective?
I think how the banks perceive AI in general is also going to be determining also their fate. I think when it comes to the future of how relevant they are going to be in the market, because AI can be seen as a productivity tool. I think this is probably a very dangerous one to take, in the sense if you just see it as a sort of opportunity to simplify one narrow process in the bank and say, hey, we have whatever AI feature and that's it. We did our AI transformation. Your innovation sort of plateaus, and people say, "Hey, so what?" So what I noticed is, there are organizations that are investing heavily into educating their people, into giving access in a very, I would say, governance friendly and data protection friendly way. So to educate the people and give access to the tools internally. To being able to really benefit from AI. And then when it comes to process optimization, I think it really depends whether, as you said, it's treated as a productivity tool or AI is treated as a new paradigm, so new platform to be building on. Yeah, so that's where I see a lot of opportunity to really take whenever time comes, and whenever the bank has a full conviction on sort of AI, that there is opportunity to execute quickly. But there are, of course, some prerequisites to that. Data, how data is being managed, how, what tech stack are they running on? Is it a modular architecture? And so on. Yeah, but a lot of questions to be answered. That is, very hard to sort of normalize on an industry level. So I think it's really a case-by-case example of where the organization stands with the adoption and with the perception of AI.
Yeah, I love that you have a balanced view that includes both working fast to be connected with the market trends, but also ponder over what it really matters for the bank. And also I love that you most of the time include the human aspect in it, that people talent is important. So Srđan, thank you for today's discussion. And I hope to have another interview on agentic AI applied to businesses, because you mentioned this is one of the topics that you most favor.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.